A lot of you guys have never seen this truck before. This is a 74 Ford Courier. But I've been turning this into a Mazda B1800. When I was a child, I've always liked these things. I haven't really been playing with this one too much lately, but when I was 18, I wanted one of these some bad. So I looked all over the country. Closest one I found was in New York. And I went and bought it. I paid $600 for this truck down there, and the motor was blown. It was located in the box when I got it. But last winter, after derby season was over, I had no projects, and this truck had been sitting in the backyard for about 5 years. So I pulled it out, and I started doing all the work to it. First thing I did was I pulled out the motor. I rebuilt the motor top to bottom. It is a B18 bottom with a B16 top off a different motor because the head gasket was gone in it. I'm thinking this thing puts out around 42 horses. I know, staggering, isn't it? But I'm not sure if that motor's going to stay in there. I'll explain that later. Then I put 91 Mazda drop spindles with disc brakes onto this truck, which apparently 2-inch drop spindles on a newer Mazda is about 4.5 on this truck. They bolted right in. As you can see, all the bolts right there just lined right up. On the top, I did have to drill one new hole, and that's it. Other than that, the stock 91 Mazda ball joints worked. Everything just slid right into place. The disc brakes went in. All the steering hooked up. It was very nice. And the rims are some of my old off-road rims. The massive offset. These are 10-inch wide. Just steelies. That's all they are. I'm going to clean them all up eventually. And then I stretched the tires to fit with some ether in my tire mounting machine. The Fender Flares are off of like 79 to 83 Toyotas. All front fenders because the rear fenders are just a plastic molded piece. So I cut apart 4 fenders and individually channeled them to work and fit. Each side, the fronts were the same per sides, but backwards. And then the back is different altogether. Now, all this, and then I started doing the body work to it, and that's when derby season started coming up, and I started getting the body work pretty much near ready for primer, and then next thing I know, I had to pull it out to put a derby car in. This truck does run. I have driven it on this motor, not far, mind you. I drove it from the far side of the shop, outside, and then straight into here. It is a 4-speed truck, so yeah, it does run. So this summer, during derby season, I have been thinking about doing a motor swap to this truck. Now, there's different motors that I've been thinking of. A dream motor would be an SR20 DAT motor, but they're expensive, they're big, high horsepower. I'd have to change all the suspension to take the horsepower of it. But the most reason why I don't want to do that one is because they're expensive. The second motor I was thinking of, because it's a very common motor in a front-wheel drive car, is a 3100 V6 out of like Lumina's, Venture Vans, Impalas, like the newer Impalas, but that motor is only offered in front-wheel drive. So I've done a whole bunch of reading on the internet, and I was going to get a flywheel pressure plate and throwout clutch and bearing from a Cavalier, and an S10 transmission that's bolted up to one of those 2.2 S10s, the 4-cylinder ones, and apparently it would work. But then that's still fuel injected, and that's a lot of work. Not only that, I'd have to do a lot of modifications to the motor because it's got no spots for motor mount, so I'd have to drill and tap into the block, which is 1. I'd have to flip the intake, which is 2. I'd have to redo the serpentine belt to get rid of all the crank sensors, that's 3. And I'd have to modify it like you wouldn't believe, so that one was a little bit out of the question. The last one that's been always in my mind would be Volkswagen TDI. So those are the motors I was always thinking of. Now the TDI, you buy the adapter plates, you can run a Toyota 5-speed or Suzuki 5-speed, which I'm familiar with Toyota stuff, right? I could do a 22R in here, but I've done that swap before. They're not very powerful. They're very tight underneath this hood. So I don't really want to do that. So there the other day I was doing some scrap cars and I actually had a car given to me. So let's go see what motor is going to end up in this car. This truck, sorry. The car was just about given to me. I don't know the kilometers of it. I do know that it's turbo. I do know that I can eventually get a rear-wheel drive transmission for it. It is... The best part is it's free, is what it is, basically. And I know I can do the swap. So, let's see what this motor is. Just have to get the hood opened. That's right, it's a TDI. So, this is a 1.6 Volkswagen TDI diesel. Now this is the pre-fuel inject, all the wires. This is an 89. Super easy to run. That's my fuel tank right there. It's a fancy TDI. It only drinks the fancy Fiji water, Fiji diesel. But I've been having this thing running here for a while. It's not powerful. It is by far a slug. But it has a turbo whistle. It sounds cool when it runs. And I'm going to make it go in that truck. And the main reason why is the price is right, and all I have to do is buy an adapter plate and a transmission. So, I don't know if any of you guys have done TDI swaps before. Maybe if you feel like leaving something in the comments, feel free to leave something in the comments. But I've done a Toyota 20R motor swap. I've done a Toyota 22RE motor swap. The last 2 winters ago, I did a 12-valve Cummins swap. Now it's my time for a TDI swap. The only swap that is left on my list, which is that little pinky finger, is an LS swap. And I already have a truck to do an LS swap. So, that one will be coming up later, but I'm on this finger. TDI. But, yep, hopefully this one can go into that truck soon.